Welcome to more creative films. Hello, everybody. Welcome to More Creative Films. We have a special guest with us today, Tommy Cota. Before we do, we'd like you to remind you to subscribe, give a thumbs up, like, and share this video. Help us get the word out. Tommy, welcome.
Man, what's going on, Paul? How you doing, bro?
What's up? Tommy's a friend, but kind of let you know what he does and who he is now. Tommy is a senior pastor at Hope Alive Church in Santa Ana, California, or Santana. He also has he's also on Hope Alive Radio Saturdays at 5 o'clock on K-Way 107.9. Occasional guest on Pastor's Perspective and his life. He was one of the lives that was subjected in the film The Neighborhood.
The Neighborhood film. Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's a blessing, bro. So we're going to get to it. Not only is Tommy a friend, we want to tell you today about his life, where he came from, and how he grew up, and how he got to where he is now, and letting you know that you could be there too. Tommy, where were you born, and how did you grow up?
All right. Well, I was born and raised in the city of Artesia, and which is a little city right there in LA County. And man, back in it's been a long time, since I was born. It was cool, you know what I mean. But that's where I was born and raised, right there. And how I grew up, Paul, that's a good question, because there's a couple different dichotomies. I know that I was loved. I had a family. My family loved me, and I loved my family. But yet, at the same time, there was parts of my family didn't really know how to really interact. And there was a lot of challenges that my family went through. A lot of alcohol. My parents had gotten divorced when I was just a kid. I always share this. I do a lot of ministry out here in Santa Ana, obviously being a pastor here. And one of the things I always share with the kids, and I didn't always share this, Paul, because it was one of those things where, maybe embarrassed, didn't want to expose myself and be vulnerable in some areas. But something that happened to me when I was 7 years old, I'll never forget it. And this was like during a time in my life where I think I was just, where life and sin and darkness became real. Because before that, I can't remember ever feeling a sense of fear or hate or anything like that. But I was sexually molested at the age of 7 years old. And it was a neighbor down the street, he said he's got some toys, and man, what kid, all of us kids, this is back in the late 70s. And so we're just riding our big wheels and all that other stuff, skateboards. And he said he got some brand new toys. So I'm going to go check him out. He did. He had some toys. But, when I get into his room and everything, the door shut, and I was sexually molested by a man. And like I said, that was the first time when fear came into my heart, man. And so after that, and prior to that, I remember my dad, my dad, I want to say this, I premise this because today my dad is, and my dad, Paul,
Yep.
He's one of the most sweetest men, gentle, loving, kind men that I know. And I'm so grateful that he's my dad, and that God has changed his life around. But there was a point, he was an alcoholic. He was mean. He was very mean to us as a family, emotionally and all that. And I remember my dad telling me that if I were to cry, that I have to stop crying because he'd put a dress on me, and I don't know what his emotion was when he would say those things. Maybe he was saying it as a joke or just trying to play around, but for me as a little boy, man, that was serious. I don't want to wear a dress, and so, but all I remember when that happened to me, man, is all I wanted to do is I wanted to cry, and I wanted to go to my dad, and I wanted to, I wanted to cry to my dad, but I was afraid. I was afraid of him. I was afraid of his response. And again, being a child, 7 years old, you're still a baby, man. You're still a child. And I had so much confusion. And so I didn't say anything, I just didn't want to cry at home. And well, years went on, like I said, my parents, they had it rough at that time. And I remember I was at a schoolyard, and another kid said something to me, and if you reference, he said something to me, called me a name, referencing like I was being a sissy or something like that. And in my mind, it triggered me to be like, oh man, how does this other kid know something about me, and I got to prove him wrong. And so at the age of 10 years old is when I got into my first fight. And I released aggression, and so it was like, all right, at that point. But at the same time, during that time, I was very involved in sports. I love sports. I love baseball. I still do today. And go Dodgers, right? So I was very involved with sports, with my brothers, and just doing things, but there was this pain that I had, on the inside. And so, that happens. Then life goes really fast. When you're a kid, it seems a lot longer. But, by the time I was 13 years old, and again, just trying to mask the pain, the sorrow, the sadness, the fear that I had, I was exposed to drugs. There was plenty of drugs right there in the neighborhood where I grew up at in Artesia, as there probably was everywhere, and so I started, smoking marijuana. And shortly after that, I started drinking, drinking beer, drinking wine, all that stuff. And by the time I was 16 years old, this is like mid to late 80s at this point. And, cocaine was everywhere. And cocaine hit the streets. And, I started using cocaine. And I can honestly, as I look back now, I was addicted to cocaine, not just snorting it, but smoking it, all that stuff. And during that time is when I stopped going to school, and I met my girlfriend, my wife today. We've been married for over 30 years now, and been together for about 32. So that's grace.
Yeah.
God is good. But that's when we first met. And life just began to go really fast, and just hanging out on the streets, drugs, selling drugs, just to have drugs, of myself, and putting myself in environments where it was dangerous, the homies and all that other stuff, just all of that madness. I got married in 1990. We got married. My wife was pregnant. And shortly after we got married, man, again, even at my wedding, bro, it was crazy. There was a party. There was no Jesus. There was no God. I'm sharing all this.
Were you already part of the gang
Yeah.
life?
Yeah. Already just, the street life with the homies, all that other stuff, just running around, just acting a fool. Right. And so then, again, all of this whole time growing up, there was no God, there was no Jesus, there was no Bible. There was like a form of godliness. I can remember there were times we would go to the Catholic Church, but, I didn't have no understanding of God, right?
Right.
Or the person of God, or the reality of God. And it came a point in my life, man, where I just I don't even know if it exists, or, questioning, Jesus and everything. Well, I started going in and out of the LA County jail shortly after we got married, within that first year of us being married. And then I just, got worse and worse. And, my whole life, just got worse in the sense of jail, and prison life. And that really appealed to me.
Right there. Was it, were you going in and out of jail? Was it gang stuff? Was it drug stuff? Or what was it?
Yeah. So the reason why I was getting arrested was for drugs, right there in the neighborhood. We were selling drugs. And that's kind of really, that was really my MO, was just, drugs, hustling dope. I was running around all this, all the streets and all in Southeast LA, and just all the different neighborhoods. And again, it wasn't because I was like some kind of big time dope dealer, because I wasn't. I was, you know, I would just probably have drugs just so I can keep drugs, you know, and just get that hustle on. And, you know, but I was putting myself in environments, man, with other neighborhoods and everything, and, you know, and not only in my area, but there in South LA and East LA and all that stuff where, yeah, it's just, it, by the time I'm going in and out of jail and in and out of prison, you know, I knew a lot of these folks, a lot of these dudes, you know what I mean? And that's where my life really began to take this turn for the worse, I'd say, is when I was really, you know, staying just in jail, you know, the LA County Jail, the gang module, state module. I'm talking about, this is back in the early 90s when all this was going on. And, you know, it was crazy, you know, it was crazy, you know, at least how I remember it, it was pretty nuts, you know, and, but there was something that appealed, that darkness. I drifted towards that way, you know, in that direction, and just that kind of affiliation with the Sureños and all that other stuff, you know,
And I was going to ask you there, like, obviously we're not promoting that, but when you graduated, I would say in a bad way, from the county jail to the state prison, do you remember your first day when you went to state prison? Was it Chino?
Oh yeah, I remember my first day. Actually, no, my first day it was there in Delano. It
Delano.
was in Delano, yeah. You know, just being from LA County Jail. I'll never forget. You know, I'll go back even to the first time I got arrested, man. First time I got arrested, I was 19 years old. Um, you know, you know, I was in the car with some dude from Compton, right? And you know, he had you know, there was a gun in the car, and we get pulled over, and we had, you know, probably about 2 ounces of methamphetamine at the time. And I remember I was afraid, I was scared, and you know, I look back at the time, I was like, oh man, thank God, right? And I still do. I look back now, that was the hand of God, because when they searched the car, the gun was not found, nor was the 2 ounces of methamphetamine was not found. And that's, you know, and I know that, you know, things probably would have been a lot different for me, you know, at 19 years old, if they had found that. What was found was, you know, a little bit of personal methamphetamine on my person, and some paraphernalia, right? But you know, so that was my first time getting arrested. And man, I remember going to jail for the very first time. I was afraid. I'm not gonna lie. I was afraid, man. I didn't want to be there.
Right.
You know, I didn't know. I heard stories. I'd never been there before. I never went to YA or nothing like that. You know, I always kind of, you know, I guess I ran too fast or something like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, so this is my first time going, and I was, you know, I didn't want to be in there, you know. And I remember, man, grown men, you know, I was 19 years old, and there I am on 9500 right there in LA County Jail with, you know, grown men. And I didn't know, you know, where to turn to and everything. But again, that mask, really, you know, I put on that mask, like, okay, I gotta, you know, I have to, you know, put this face on, and you know, and little by little, you know, but within 24 hours, I was like, okay, I got this, you know. I was able to adapt. And then the first day I went to prison, man, yeah, it was, I'll never forget that either, you know, catching the chain, you know, taking that long ride, you know, to Delano. And you know, it wasn't, and again, it's not glamorous, you know. At the time, I think in my mind, because I'd already been like in and out of the LA County Jail several times, and I was already, you know, living this life and out there in the streets, you know, just doing evil, hanging around with all kinds of different neighborhoods. And, you know, a lot of bad things were happening. People were getting killed and murdered around me. You know, it was bad, man. It was evil. And again, you know, I'm not glorifying that either. I don't like to think about it, because, you know, I don't want to go back there, but I go back there in this sense because I see what God has done. Right.
Amen. Yep.
And yeah, God has done a miracle. But yeah, my first day there at Delano State Prison, man, again, I think there was a bit of fear, but yet at the same time, it was like, all right, I've arrived. You know, this is where we're supposed to be now. I'm playing this game, you know, from the county jail. Now I'm supposed to do time in prison. And, you know, it was like, okay, what level am I going to be on? I got to get to the level 4. You know what I mean? It was just like, what right person in their right mind thinks that way, right?
Right.
A person who's in sin, a person who's been deceived by darkness, and that was me. You know, that was me, just like so many other people. In total, man, I spent probably about close to 6 years, you know, incarcerated in total.
Did you
And
what were your thoughts like towards the Northerners? Like, I know now we love them, but what were your thoughts going in there? Like, was your mind already trained? Like, okay, this is on South side, North side. Was it
oh
like
yeah,
that? Or?
it was already I was already trained, bro. You know, I think that was one thing. There was a season there where I was in the LA County Jail. You know, just fighting a case. You know what I mean? Just really wasting time, really. There, and that's really, you know, where I saw it as many others did, saw it as gladiator school,
Yeah.
you know. And so my mind was already trained and everything of when I do hit the yard, and you know, there's you know, Northerners are there, it was like, you know, just green light on site, you know. And
Were you I believe I think on a previous conversation you had gone to Tracy. Did you go to Tracy?
no, I didn't go to
Where did you end up?
Tracy. Yeah, I didn't go to Tracy. It was there in Delano. We had spent time there in Wasco and Corcoran, and also then Chino for violation. Yeah, and yeah, so that was the deal there, you know. And yeah, it's crazy, bro. You know, funny thing, bro, is that just real quick, maybe about 10 years ago, after I got saved and I was serving in the church, Paul Duke, a friend of mine, you know who Paul Duke is. He goes in and out of the jails and does prison ministry, right? And he invited me to go. And I was like, all right. He says, where are we going? He said, Corcoran. I was like, what? I go, oh, come on, let's go then. And man, it was cool. And I enjoyed it. There was actually some guys that were there. They kind of, you know, walked up and they kind of wanted to, I guess, take a double take. And I was like, what's up, man? You remember me? And that totally changed for my life, because now I'm sharing the gospel with them and everything. But
Yeah.
I remember, bro, I want to share this because it was they had yard recall. You know, it was about 3:30, 4 o'clock or something like that, and they were about to do count. And one of the lieutenants comes and tells the group, right? They come and tell the group, they said, hey, we're gonna do like a little walkthrough, a tour with all these, you know, with all the volunteers. They kind of want to go and see what all the cells are like. And I was like, all right, you know, I kind of go along with it. And we're walking into this one cell block, and the gates open, and the air conditioning and the air came rushing out of the building. Man, I got to tell you, bro, I stopped in my tracks, and I just, it was weird. It was like almost like uncontrolled. I didn't control it. I just stopped. I said, nah, I'm cool. The smell, the sense of smell jogged my memory instantly. And I was like, I don't want to go in there. I don't need to go in there. I know what it's like, you know. I don't want to go in there. So it was just weird, bro. You know,
What year was that? What year were you there in Corcoran?
Oh man, what was that? Maybe 94, 95,
wow.
Something like that.
I was probably barely getting out right there. I was at Corcoran too. I was at Corcoran.
Yeah.
So you were there when Charles Manson was there, and
oh yeah,
Sirhan, and
yeah,
you know, yeah. Incredible,
yeah, and
bro.
yeah, you know, and I remember, bro, it's just like getting my, you know, here's the thing, bro, about all those times, man. It was just like I think of, you know, why did I got myself in trouble when I was in there, like, you know, and just being drawn to this darkness, and being drawn to not just the darkness, man, but the evil and all that other stuff that goes on, and you know, with like gang life, prison gang life, you know, us against them, and you know, making wine, getting high, doing drugs, all that stuff, bro, making weapons, you know. And it's like, I remember, it's like, how did I get myself in trouble in here? And it had to do with that whole mentality of, you know, Northerners against Southerners, Northern Hispanics and Southern Hispanics. And you know, I remember, like, I think back now, I was like, what a dummy, you know. And it's like, I'm getting myself in trouble for really no reason, right? Well, you know, so that's kind of what was going on, bro, in my life. And then eventually, bro, what happens is that you know, my wife, dude, in 1996, I was on a violation, and I was in jail, and she started going to jail. No, or not to jail. She started going to church. She started going to church, but she was becoming serious about her relationship with
Right.
God at that time. And I remember for me, I was like, why? It was so, I was, I didn't know why. And I didn't know what the appeal was or nothing like that. Again, I was blinded by darkness. And so I remember that happened. And then in 1998, again, I was still incarcerated. And she tells me over the phone for the first time in my life, that she tells me, Tommy, I want you to know that I forgive you for everything that you've done. And that really did something for me right there, in my heart. And at this time, this in 1990, I was at Wasco State Prison at this time on the level 3 yard right there. And I remember I was like, what does she mean, about all this? And then I eventually paroled January 19th in the year 2000, right? I paroled from prison, and she picked me up, and she's telling me about all, God and all this other stuff. And she was going to a small church over in Anaheim called Church of Living Stones with Pastor Jesse Arredondo. You know who she is.
Yeah,
Man,
we
she's on fire.
both went to that church.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's right. Yeah.
That was part of our training ground, bro.
That was it, bro. That was our training ground. That's actually, I think, when we first ran into each other.
Man, it's crazy.
Right around there, with Joaquin and everybody. So I remember she was going to that church, and she was telling me all about God and everything. And I was like, okay, whatever, but I went right back to what I was doing. I was not even 24 hours, bro. It's like, okay, I'm, we're back at it, I was absconding already. The police were looking for me. The house got raided, a few times when I was there, and it was just chaos, bro. But here's the thing: my wife, she was praying for me, man. She was praying for me. My wife had the women there. Pastor Jesse was praying for me. Other women were praying for me from Livingstone's church. And man, if you're watching this, don't ever underestimate the power of prayer. Just keep on praying for the people that you love, because I truly believe it was a power of prayer that did something in my heart. Because there came a point in my life, right, in a period of 6 months, that those emotions of when I was like a child, of being lost, hurt, confused, sad, all of this, empty, they surfaced. And no amount of drugs, the behavior and lives that I was living wasn't masking it no more. And man, there came a point in time where, again, like, there was so many other things that were going on around me that I remember my wife, she was on her way to church one day, and I said, hey, I'll go to your church with you, right? And she said, okay, come on, let's go. And so we go, and for the first time in my life, it was June 11th in the year 2000, 6 months after I paroled from state prison, that 6 month period, man, God was doing something in me, and I heard the powerful gospel message, and God captured my heart, and I surrendered my life, and I just humbled myself, and I broke down. I remember I just started crying, and my son was there. He was, at that time, he was like 9-10 years old, and I was just crying. I remember, I was like, I don't want to see my son. I didn't want him to see me crying. So I was like, I'll go with your mom over there, and I was trying to wipe away my tears. But my son, he stopped, bro, and he looked up at me with his, big old brown eyes, and he was like, Dad, you're crying because God loves you. And dude, when he told me that,
Wow.
that really took me over this edge of like, what have I been doing? Man, I could not, but it was a good cry.
Yeah.
It was healthy. It was real, man. And I got to tell you, my life changed forever from that point forward. And
was that at Livingstone? Was that at Livingstone?
That was at Livingstone's. That's right there.
Incredible, bro.
That was right there in Anaheim, bro. That was at Livingstone's. And my parole agent said, hey, you have a choice. You either go back to 1 year violation there in Chino, or do a men's program. And I said, man, I'll do a men's. I was totally against men's programs before that. I was like, man, take me to a violation, but at this point, I really want to change. And so I go to this men's program, and it was there at this men's, it was at the Salvation Army in downtown Long Beach, bro, where I fell in love with the richness of God's word, bro.
Yeah.
It was there, and there was this gentleman, bro. He would come every Thursday, and it was a voluntarily thing, right? Where the men there can come and just get a Bible study and ask all kinds of questions. And man, that's what I did. I just showed up and I was asked questions, and did all that, bro. And then I found I was listening to K-Wave radio and listening to all this teaching, and we went to Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, shortly after I got saved. And I was like, man, I want to grow more and learn more. So that's what I did, man. In 2002, we kind of just planted there at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. I kind of felt a little fish out of water at first, when I first got there, man, because here, just the kind of life that I was living at one point, Southeast LA.
Yeah.
And now I'm over here like in Costa Mesa, where everybody like by Newport and all that stuff. And I was like, man, these people are they're probably looking at me and tripping. I felt the fish out of water, man. I was the only brown dude there, bro.
Yeah.
And,
Hold on, before you go on, I want to get to that. I want to get to how you got on staff and all that. But before we go on, just really quick.
Yeah.
Jessie Arredondo, I believe she goes to your church now, right? Or
she does.
Yeah. Jessie Arredondo, me and Tommy had both went there. This lady just loves the Lord, and she's been used big time in Orange County. When all the gang meetings are going on, she would show up, and she would feed us and talk to us and share God's love. And just, I want to give her props, man. What's the biggest thing you got from being at Livingstone? The biggest thing you learned, we give her props because we both love her, man.
Oh man, I love her to death. She's like really my spiritual mom, and I'm very humbled now that, she's coming to our church and she's a part of the ministry that takes place at Hope of Life. But I would say the biggest thing, bro, that from her is faith. I just remember it was just like, God's got this. Like, man, put your faith before everything, and she was a woman of faith. She didn't have fear. Like you said, just all the gang meetings and all that other stuff. She was just like, I don't care who's who or what's what. They got to know the gospel. And I'm going to go in there and tell them that they need to know Jesus, and that was really a step of faith. And I remember just watching her and observing her in that. And that was, that ministered to me. Here's a woman, just filled with so much faith that she's like, I didn't care. She didn't care where she was. She just wanted people to know about God.
Yeah, bro. And you know what? During those gang meetings, it's funny because she got a lot of flack, but she knew she was placed in a position to minister to us, to mobsters, to everything. And to ask her the story one day, we were talking about, we were at the gang meeting. I wasn't saved yet. We were at the gang meeting before I entered her church. We were talking about shooting her because she was preaching at the gang meeting, me and my homies. So she always tells that story, but it's pretty trippy. But so you end up at Costa Mesa, Calvary Chapel.
Yeah.
To start from there and tell us like how the rest of the story went, man.
Oh man, yeah. So I end up there, and then I just wanted to go because I really enjoyed that Bible teaching, and I just was growing more. And they offered a Bible college there and school of ministry. And so I just started, getting more involved. And really, I went to the school of ministry there because I didn't know that it was like a pastoral type of school. I was on high control parole, right? This dude from LA, I really don't know as much Bible theology and doctrine as maybe some of these other guys. I was going because I thought it was just like more Bible studies and I had free time.
Yeah.
And so when I got,
was it Chuck or Brian at the pastor at the time?
It was Pastor Chuck Smith.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah. And so I remember when the first day of that school, bro, I was like, they gave me like a stack of books and started telling me that, hey, we're going to go through Greek and Hebrew and all this homework. And I was like, oh, heck no. I was thinking in my mind, I was like, dude, I paid these guys and they want me to do all the work, because he had to pay to go to the school. And anyways, bro, my wife encouraged me, man. She says, don't, you just keep going to the school, and I was like, well, babe, these are for people that are going to be pastors. And that's not me. I'm on parole. They find out I'm on parole. I don't think they let pastors, people be pastors when they're on parole. That was, I didn't know any of this. Anyways, man, she encouraged me, bro. And, next thing you know, I I lost my job. I didn't have a job no more, you know, and so I just started volunteering a lot more. And then what happened, bro, about a year after this, when I didn't have a job, there was a ministry that was going into the city of Santa Ana to do some ministry work. Well, I was busted with some dudes from Santa Ana and all that stuff. But I wasn't familiar with the streets or nothing like that, you know, in Orange County, right? So I remember we to go and do ministry. And man, the first day I went out to go and do ministry in Santa Ana, bro, it was really my first act of ministry. Dude, I fell in love. I was like, man, this is where God wants me. Like, God wants to use me. And he's using me with youngsters, with kids, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. And I can just only remember where I was at their age, you know, and then I got more familiar with like what was going on in the city of Santa Ana, how big it is, how populated it is, and man, how much pain there is as well, you know. And also, I began to realize that the beauty and the richness of the people, and you know, they're you know, just it's a thriving city inward. You know, it's just it really is. And there's pockets though where there's a lot of hurt and pain, and a lot of gang activity, as you know, and drugs and everything. So it was something that, hey, I felt comfortable in doing ministry. It was almost like I would take back, well, I know how Pastor Jesse did it, so I'll just do the same thing, right? And so that's kind of where all that, you know, I started doing ministry here, and shortly after that, and Pastor Brian Broderson and Pastor Chuck Smith ordained me as a pastor, you know, and that was a trip too, because I was still on parole. And I remember I had to tell Pastor Brian, I said, hey, before we go through with all of this, you know, I just want you to know I'm on parole still, you know, I'm an ex-con, I'm on parole. And he just starts laughing because I didn't know if it was legal or not. And he just starts laughing. He puts his arm around me. He says, man, that's great. I said, great?
Awesome.
No, it's not. But it was great in the sense, great in the sense of the testimony of God, right? Yeah. And man, you know, so I got on pastoral staff at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in 2005, and just started serving and learning, you know, how to serve and being raised up as a minister and as a pastor. And it was then, bro, I would say it was like around 2005 is when I really truly understood the call of God on my life and the giftings that he's given to me. And I began to take that seriously, you know, and I would encourage anybody who's watching this and you really sense a call of God or a gifting of God in your life, take it seriously, really grow in it, you know, because God wants to use you. I think that's an important thing. And that's what happened with me, you know, and man, kind of like I can say the rest is history, but there were so many different things that took place, you know, in my just growing as a pastor and serving there at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa and everything.
It's incredible, man. I mean, you got to sit under one of the greatest pastors to me. I mean, you know, great maybe in my eyes, but I mean, an icon, but a humble man, but a man of God, Chuck Smith. That is incredible.
Oh, you're right.
Hey, before we go on, man, can you give us your best Chuck Smith story that happened with you?
Oh, dude, I can. So there's a couple, but so late in Pastor Chuck's, you know, as he was, you know, kind of getting later, right before he's, you know, goes home to be with the Lord, you know, God was using me. Obviously, I was a pastor there, and so there would be times, a number of times, not all the time, but a number of times where you know, I would drive Pastor Chuck where he needed to be, like whether it be a funeral or something like that, and I would drive him, you know, and I remember that just those times of just he and I being in the car. At first, I was like, man, I don't want to say anything, you know, but I just started asking him questions of like what his life was like when he was younger, you know, and he would just tell me about all the things that he did. You know, I didn't know that he grew up in Santa Ana, you know, so he was telling me about all the things and stuff that he knew about Santa Ana. And, you know, I wasn't born and raised in Santa Ana or in Orange County, but God brought me here and he's given me a love for the city. We live now in Santa Ana. So when Chuck Smith was telling me about all the history that he knew, it was really interesting and I just really enjoyed it. But one of the biggest things that ministers to me about Pastor Chuck Smith is probably, I would say maybe a month before he went home to be with the Lord. He was very weak, very, very weak, very sick. He was faithful, and when he was able to teach on a Sunday morning, he would. And so this one day he felt comfortable enough to come and preach. And so I was there at the church at the front desk, and Chuck Smith, Pastor Chuck, is coming in, and he's very weak and sick. He's got the oxygen tank and everything, and he didn't look good at all. And there was a lady that was at the counter, and as Chuck was walking in, she kind of waves him down, and she's like, "Hey, Pastor Chuck," and me trying to protect Pastor Chuck in a sense, I'm like, "Oh, ma'am, I can pray with you. Chuck needs to go inside." But he stopped, and he turned, and he spent, as weak as he was and as sick as he was, he spent probably a good 7 minutes, with this woman, listening to all of her heart, her passion, her request, and just what she wanted to share with him. And he was holding her hands, right? And after he was engaged in the conversation, afterwards, he prayed for her, and she went, her way, and he went inside. And that, I say, that really ministered to me, because I understood what he was going through, but yet he was a pastor.
Yeah.
He loved the people.
Yeah.
He loved the people. And that really, me watching that, I kind of like, wow, I want to love people like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just take the time to love on the people. And so I would say that's really, for me, the biggest thing that I can take away from watching Pastor Chuck Smith in action, in ministry and stuff.
And knowing you as a friend, and visiting your church a few times, I've seen you when you're with someone, you're focused on them, bro. And you probably got that from Pastor Chuck.
Yeah.
Like I used to work on staff with Pastor Raul Reese for years, and he would have us, I only met Chuck like 2 times, like shaking his hand, but he would have us listen to the Chuck tapes. Back then there was cassettes.
Yeah.
Listen to the Chuck tapes. I was part of it,
Yeah.
Chuck Smith is ingrained in my head. And did you ever get to meet Romaine?
No, when I got there, I didn't, really didn't have that much action with like staff, but I knew that he had been sick at that point already, and everything. So I didn't really have any interaction with him, just all of the stories of Romaine.
Man, what a great man. I got to meet him a few times too. And again, over at Rawls Church, man, Romaine, he'd make us listen to Romaine. And dude, just you went to the great church, Tommy. I'm envious.
Yeah, man. It was a blessing, bro, for me to, just to grow and really grow and do ministry there, and I'm grateful, for all that. And, I gotta, yeah. So, yeah, man, real quick, I'll tell you about some stuff that was, there when I was at Costa Mesa, how things began to just really change. So number one, I went to Bible college, School of Ministry, and I really, again, I fell in love with the Word of God, man, and the richness of God's Word. So I began to just like take all these classes, and read and study and go to school, and it's crazy because, I was doing a funeral one time for a family member, and some friends from the area were actually they had just got out of prison, and they were there. And I remember I was doing the service, the funeral service, right, officiating it, and I'm speaking and I'm sharing the gospel, and there's this dude in the back, and I recognize him, but he was like looking at me like, is that Tommy? Like, what the heck? So afterwards, bro, and Pastor Jesse's son was there too, Joaquin. And so he comes up to me, and he's like, hey, he walks around me, bro, and kind of looks at me from head to toe, and he's like, hey, like, he says, what the heck happened? But he didn't use the word heck, right? Yeah. He said, what the heck happened to you, man? Like, what happened? Like, you're not the same. Like, you don't even, you talk different, and what's going on, bro? It was so cool because I was able to tell him Jesus, bro. And I went back to school, man, and Jesus, and these weren't things that I didn't try to change. I began to tell him, like, I actually became the man that God's always intended me to be, and that's to be a servant and to be a pastor. And then God just started bringing, I started leading, ministry and just understanding that call and wanting to do well, please the Lord, right? And so, God just brought, just wonderful people alongside me, bro. And we started, just putting together conferences and outreaches out in the neighborhoods, just uh, car shows and just reaching all kinds of different people, bro, for the sake of the gospel. And I look back, man, the One Step to Freedom drug and alcohol conferences we did, and God just began to bless all of that. And all of that, those efforts and all that ministry, bro, it kind of, it evolved into like a church plant. And I didn't know that's what God was doing at the time. I thought it was just, man, hey, we're doing a lot of cool things, for the Lord, conferences to all kinds of different stuff.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah. It was, bro. And, and that's how the Hope of Life Church got planted, bro. There was, right before Pastor Chuck had passed, actually, I was telling Pastor Brian Broderson, he's really the pastor. He's my pastor, and God brought him into my life, man. And ever since day one, Pastor Brian Broderson has just done nothing but just encourage and speak life, and just like, man, go for it, do it, and so he was always an encourager. And I remember I was telling him about something that God was opening up some doors for us. I started like developing relationships with city council members and chief of police, deputy chief of police, and that's a whole crazy other story, man, right there. But I was telling him something about how God was opening up some doors and showing some favor. And before I left his office, he just looked at me. He said, "Hey, come here." He said, "You know what? You should plant a church." And I'm sitting there listening. I go, "Yeah, I know, huh? That would be cool." And he's like, "No, seriously." He starts to think out loud, right? And he's like, "No, seriously, you should do this and da-da-da-da," And I was like, "Man, that's a great idea. We thought about something like this." And so I walked out of his office, and then I stopped. I was like, "Wait a minute. What did he just tell me?" I went right back into his office, and I said, "Hey, Pastor Brian," I shut the door, and now I sit down. I leaned forward, and I said, "Hey, what do you mean? Like, what are you trying to tell me?" And so he kind of just laid out what maybe some thoughts about planting a church. And that was in 2013. And that was the same year that Pastor Chuck died. And so we put it on pause for a little while. So we started this church, man. God brought this team, bro, from all the different conferences and the outreaches that I was doing. And Gabriel Nieves, very well, also, AKA The Message, God brought him into my life. George Martinez,
Yep.
That are serving with me, and we're all like-minded. We all have kind of a similar story of what God has done. And now it's like we're serving together, and man, it's been, it's just been 6 years now since we started the church here in Santa Ana, and God has just been blessing it, bro. And it's a humbling thing to know that God can use a fool like me, and I know this, and probably there's been other men that's been on your show that they've said the same thing, but it's it's a miracle, that God can use people like me and who was just so empty and lost and didn't even care about my own life, to now it's like I get to love on people and shepherd them and share the word and the gospel with them. And it's just it's an amazing humbling thought, and it's a miracle from God. And man, I'm blessed, I'm blessed that I get to do this.
Yeah, that's funny, bro. Want to know a funny Brian Broderson story really quick?
Yeah.
Let
me know.
I'm working for Pastor Rawl. I want to say it's the early 90s. I'm in the radio ministry, right? So he comes in, and somebody Brian was in England or something, at that time, whatever year that was, he was in England, and some lady tells Pastor Rawl, "Hey, we need to send some stuff to Brian Broderson, some materials, this and that." So Pastor Rawl comes in. He goes, "Hey, here's the address. We got to send stuff to Broderson. We got to send stuff to Broderson out there in England." So I'm over there, I'm packing Rawl's books, a bunch of Rawl's cassettes, and I copied them and put them in the thing.
Yeah.
And I sent them to England, whatever, and I would, talk to Cheryl, and she probably won't remember me from anything, but I would talk to them and say hi. But the funny thing is, Rawl's accent.
Yeah.
Tapes to England with Rawl's accent. So just thinking about that, looking back, I was like, oh, maybe I should have sent Chuck's, or I don't know. But we did it for the right reason. So we tried to support him back then. So it's funny, man. So
That's awesome,
they
man.
probably
Yeah.
got it, and they're like, "What are you guys thinking, man?" Anyway, so but cool, bro. And when you started your church, man, were you scared, or you're like, I remember again going out from Ross Church for a church plant in L.A. before anybody was in L.A. Me and a guy Andrew had went out started church in L.A. before Trujillo and everybody was there, but it didn't work out. But we know the prayers led in Trujillo and everyone. How
Yeah.
did you feel, bro? Like going out, bro?
Honestly, Paul, I get asked this question a lot, and it wasn't something to where like we just thought of this and man, let's go and do it. It was kind of like backwards, and I really think it's in my opinion, I think this is a good model maybe for a church plant is to, we were already serving in the community. We were very active for about 10 years straight.
Yeah.
Every day of the week, Monday through Friday, we were doing active ministry. We were taking church out of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, right? And the team, like, Gabriel, George, we had a team of volunteers that were with us with the Hands of Hope ministry. And we would, Monday through Friday, man, be active in the city of Santa Ana. So we were taking church into the community, into the apartments, apartment complexes, on Townsend, Little Minnie, all these different areas, where Lopers is at, Santa Anita, all that stuff, but we were doing active ministry. Like we were just do fun stuff really for kids, for parents. And then when we would see all the homies, on the periphery, kind of just keeping posted up, from a distance, and I've been out there at El Salvador Park, man. That's how it was all the time. And we would eventually venture off over there and start connecting with them. But we did that for a good solid 10 years, bro, of just being active in the city, not just with the residents and the, the people of the city, but also, with other churches, other entities and school districts and city council members, and just connecting with them. And so when we started the church, it was like about time almost, and so it wasn't a fear in that sense. It was more of I was I don't want to say anxious, but I was there was like a bit of nervousness, like what's gonna happen, how is this, kind of like I equated, bro, like, I love roller coasters, man. I love to go on roller coasters, and when I've never been on a roller coaster and it's like I'm the next person to get online, bro, my heart starts to race, and I get this feeling, but I'm going to get on that roller coaster. And that's kind of how I felt, It's like I was a little nervous, I was excited, but we're going to do this. And man, so that was the emotion that I had when we started the church. And again, I think it had a lot to do with us, just plowing that field and getting involved and with the community and the people of the city and other churches, ministries, and, school districts and all that stuff. So there was some familiarity already, with the city and that stuff. So it made sense. Again, like I said, it was about
that's so
time.
beautiful, bro. That's so beautiful. And then the team God has given you. Like apart from you, I've hanged out with Gabriel, one of your assistant pastors, a ton of times. George Martinez, a ton of times. And when I was on staff with Raw, I had his back. I mean, I believe in this philosophy of ministry, everything. These guys, they have your back. And that's just beautiful. Like God brought you like-minded individuals to have your back, to hold up your arms, bro. And it's just such a blessing what you guys are doing in Santa Ana. And even here in La Habra, where I'm from, man, I wish some of these churches would do what you guys are doing, reaching in to the hood, and not a lot of people are really doing it, to be honest with you. But your philosophy of ministry, tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, number one is that we're always going to be centered on the word. That's number one. We're going to be centered on the word. So a Jesus church, so that means we're also going to be centered on the gospel, and we're going to be kingdom minded, and so with that, we have this, this philosophy of what we want to do is partner with God's people as well. It's not just about Hope of Life Church, but it's about like-minded, brothers and sisters, other churches and ministries that have that same mindset, kingdom-minded, centered on the word, and a gospel church, teaching, a Jesus church, the gospel message. And so what's been really cool, so in a nutshell, that's really what it is. And we go out of our way and make these efforts of building bridges and connecting and talking with and making relationships with other churches. And this is something that hasn't always been, I've now, it's been almost 20 years since I've been a Christian, and I have seen, a lot of change, especially being at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa for a long period of my Christian walk as well, that there's more of this desire, it seems, with churches to have this unity amongst ourselves, like regardless of the denominational lines and all that other stuff. Is like we want to do away with the barriers, and begin to build bridges. And I think and this is happening in Santa Ana, man. It's wonderful that we're constantly getting together with other churches here locally and brainstorming of what we can do, not just to help each other, especially now with what's going on in our world and all that stuff, these days with this COVID-19 and, all this chaos, but we're coming together to see how can we support each other, help each other, but also how can we do this for the purpose of expanding the kingdom. So that's a big deal for me. And in our philosophy of ministry is the partnership and relationship that we get to have with other churches and ministers and leaders and everything. And I got to say, man, it's God is really blessing that.
That's beautiful, bro, because a lot of times, I attend Calvary Chapel, Santa Fe Springs, where your pops used to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Pastor Ray, I love him, man. He's awesome.
He's beautiful, bro. I love our church, and we're getting favor a lot with the city and stuff like that also. But just what you're saying, that churches working together, a lot of times us Calvary Chapels have gotten accused that we only work within ourselves, and those people pointing the finger a lot of times are doing the same thing. But it's beautiful that creating that harmony with other churches, man, that we're working together to glorify the Lord, But tell me about you okay on time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're winding it down, but I wanted to get in really quick. Like me and you message, we worked on a video called "Keep Your Head Up" with Kilroy. I did that video, and you guys go Google that video. It's a "Keep Your Head Up" by The Message and Tapasu. It's an incredible video. You'll get to see Tommy in that video. Even myself makes a cameo, but Google that. It's a blessing. Share it. But I really wanted to get into your life was part of a docu-film called The Neighborhood.
Yeah.
Talk about that and how that happened, and where people could see that and how it blessed you.
Yeah. So the Neighborhood film. So I can remember, man, it may have been 2012 or 2013, and just talking with Brian Broderson and him getting to know a lot more of my testimony. It seems like, he was like getting a little bit more of all the little details of what God has, done through my life and all those experiences that I had, and I remember him saying, man, we should make a documentary, and I kind of just chuckled at it, and during that time, and still today, these guys are really good friends of mine. David Trujillo, David Zamora, and Jose Hernandez, all pastors, all serving the Lord. We all come from somewhat of a similar kind of a background as you and I, Paul, and these guys. And so Brian just, he said, hey, he got us all together and he shared this vision of what he wants to do and, make a documentary about our lives. So it's a story about four guys, pastors. We didn't know each other in the past, but just kind of documenting some of our experiences from gangs and prison, drugs, sorrow, sadness, all kinds of stuff. and now kind of like we're all serving the Lord now. And the whole purpose of the film was really to highlight the message of the gospel and the power of the gospel, that God can take a life, you know, that maybe is always going to be, that seems to be marginalized, or man, those people never change or something like that. So this is documenting the power of God, really, to take a person's life and to change it, right, to the glory of God, and then begin to use that person. That's really what the whole, heart is behind the film. But I got to be honest, man. When they said, I was like, was this going to be one of those cheesy films? Because I know you and I probably seen some cheesy stuff, in the past, And that's why I'm grateful for you, Paul. Is like you know that, and you're like, okay, we want to do some stuff that's not cheesy though, do it right, And I just love the stuff that you're involved with. It's awesome. But when I remember they got the film crew, Riley Taylor, who's up there in Washington and all that stuff. And again, I was like, how is this going to work? I don't know, dude. Once everything was all said and done and it was like, finished, it came out. Again, I'm not saying just because, you're in it or something, man, the quality is pretty good. They did a good job.
It is.
Yeah.
I told Riley, man, they got down. And then to add Kilroy's voice on top of it, made it nice.
Yeah.
Dude.
They have Kilroy's voice as a narrator in it and everything. I thought, man, they did just a really, really good, solid job on it, man. And so that film, it's been used, bro, man. God, I cannot tell you, Paul, how God has been using that film in amazing ways, bro. There's prisons that are using this film as a part of curriculum.
Wow.
And for people that are going into jail system, juvenile hall, the probation department, they're not just giving it, say, here, go and, trip out and look at it like it's, remember the old Duke of Earl movies or something like that. They're actually using, these institutions are using it for the purpose of a part of their curriculum, and so it's really cool. As a matter of fact, I just got a phone call from a women's shelter home that's not too far from here, and it's crazy. That's a women's shelter home, but they show the neighborhood film there as part of like their 18 weeks of change and everything. And so they called up and said if my wife and I wouldn't mind going out and sharing our story personally with them. And so I was like, wow, trip out, of course, we'd love to do that. And so God's been using it, and if you want to, for people that are looking to, get it and all that stuff, they can get it. It is available on iTunes. You can get it there on iTunes. I'm not sure if they can still get it on Amazon Prime. I know that at one point it was on Amazon Video and Amazon Prime, but or also you can go to theneighborhoodfilm.com. And get all this stuff.
I noticed when the times I visited your churches, you had it there for people to get. Is that still happening?
Yeah. Actually, yeah. People come to church. We do have a stack of videos there.
Yeah, and I'll put the link to his church and everything down in the bio, so you guys could click on it or go buy the film or pick it up live at the church service when we get back out of this quarantine lockdown, bro.
Yeah, I know, bro. It's
got
crazy.
Us on Pelican Bay status, bro.
Hey, dude, I know, man. I was like, man, I go, this lockdown, I go, I'm cool. Just go give me a bunch of soups. I'm ready for lockdown.
That's right.
People look at me when I say that, and they look at me like, what? I go, never mind, bro. Don't never mind. Inside joke.
The coffee, a stamp.
Yeah.
Hey, bro. So we're almost to the close. I wanted to ask you, if there was 4 people, the Lord obviously is the creator. We love him above all. But 4 people who played an instrumental part in your life and you would put on the Mount Rushmore of your life that meant a lot to help you get where you're at spiritually, who are they? 4 people.
My wife, my mom, my dad, and I probably say, really, I think of Pastor Jesse, but man, can I bring more?
Yeah, of course.
I think of Pastor Brian too. Pastor Brian Broderson. Really, God's used him in my life. But definitely, bro, first I got to say is my wife, my family. My mom and my dad. both of them. It's just they're, because what I put them through, in my life, and I put them through a lot, and I don't deserve to still be married to a beautiful and wonderful wife. And she's still there. She believed in the Lord that God would change me. That was her prayer. Her prayer, she tells people that, God either change Tommy or take him out of my life. And I tell her today, I said, you know what, babe, God took the old Tommy and brought you a new man, totally, completely different, and it's really cool, man. And I see how our kids have been raised in the Lord. They don't experience, they don't do the things that, we do. It's like, man, my wife and I trip out, and our kids, like, they love the Lord. They're educated, they're faithful, and they're trustworthy, something that neither my wife nor I were at their age, and we just look and we say, man, that's the grace of God, so definitely, bro, I think my family is, are the ones that are going to be on that Mount Rushmore for sure,
Yeah.
Of my faith and walk.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned Jesse in there.
Yeah.
She's on mine too, man. She's on mine, and then of course I knew Brian was on yours because he's
Yeah.
had your back from day one,
Yeah.
and that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I want to bring up a couple of names really quick, and tell me just a couple of words about them and how they played a part maybe in your life or whatever you want to say about them. We all know these guys. These are common names that we all know if you're in the Calvary Chapel movement. First name, Pastor Chuck Smith.
Oh yeah. Man of God, just man of the word. Yeah.
Brian Broderson.
Faithful, visionary, prophetical in many ways.
Ray Lou,
friend, just a faithful friend. Yeah.
David
Rosales, man, icon. I remember listening to Pastor David Rosales when I first got saved, and I was like, man, I love this guy. Icon in that sense, bro. Yeah.
Pancho Juarez.
Oh man. Man, I love that man. Just I love him, bro. He's just a faithful man of God, a lover of God, and a lover of his family. He's he's another guy that I just love, having conversations with. And he's always reminding me of, in our conversations, of making sure you're putting your family first,
Yeah.
Good. So for Pancho, I would say godly example.
Yeah, man. So last but not least, now's your chance to give him a jab. David Trujillo.
Oh man, he owes me money.
Me too.
Man, David Trujillo, man. I'm just so blessed that God brought us together, because we're just aside from being co-laborers in the gospel and all that stuff, we're buddies, man. So we're friends, and we like to clown around and hang out, and our families get together and stuff like that from time to time. So man, just a good friend in the Lord. Yeah, I love that, brother.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Before we close, Tommy, is there anything you want to share? And then I would ask that if you want to lead a prayer to anybody who may be watching who needs Jesus.
Yeah. I think I would go back to what I kind of shared in the beginning of our conversation, Paul, is that the call of God, and if you are watching this and you sense that maybe, hey, God's got a call in your life, and maybe you're thinking of like, man, well, that you have a past, and everything. I want you to know that's okay. Your past, don't let your past dictate what God wants to do in your life today and in tomorrow. Your past is your past, and your past can be something, it could be something bad and everything, and your past can be something like an anchor that's going to hold you down, or you can look at your past of what God has brought you from as a stepping stone to take you higher, you know, and to do more for him. And so that's the encouraging word that I would say to you, you know, because I believe that we are living in some last days, you know, some crazy times, and God is wanting to raise men and women up from everywhere, from all kinds of walks of life. You know, you don't got to be educated. Sometimes people think you got to be educated. You don't. You know, I never thought I'd want to, you know, go to school and all that stuff. That's a work of the Holy Spirit. I tell you that much. We don't want to go to school and learn and all that other stuff. But you don't have to have that. You know, what you have to have is a surrendered heart and life over to Jesus. And because God wants to raise people up, because people need to hear Jesus, and people need to see, you know, how God raises people up from all kind of different walks of life, you know, to do his work. And so please, brother, sister, whoever you are, step up, step out, you know, and let the Lord use you in a mighty and powerful way.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Tommy can be heard on K-Wave Saturdays, 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that is Hope Alive Radio. Obviously, they're not having church service right now, but Tommy, are you putting your services up online?
Yeah. So all of our stuff is being streamed right now. Yeah, because of all this COVID-19 stuff that's going on. So everything's shut down. We want to, you know, partner, become a part of the solution with that. So all of our services are online. You can go to our church app, Hope Alive Church Santa Ana, for our church app on any of your devices, and download the app, and you can live stream and watch previous messages and get information, all that stuff on there. You can go to our website to get that same information, which is hopealivechurch.net. You can also call us. Our phone number is 714-913-3037. You know, just let us know if you want us to pray for you. We'll pray for you. You know, if you want to just come alongside or maybe see how you can help, you know, if you're not already helping at a church, you want to just give us a call, we'll let you know. But I would encourage you, you know, right, especially the days we're living in right now, look to your church where you're at, because I'm sure your church is doing some things that's going on there. So, but keep us in prayer, I'd say. But those are the ways you can connect with us and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we'll have those down in the comments. So please, and follow Hope Alive Church. They're doing a great job in Santa Ana. They have a yearly car show. They have a yearly car show that they do. I'm in a massive car show. To me, it's the best car show I've ever been to. I was telling the message. You know, they got people, Second Chance, been there. MC Boulevard singing the Manhattans.
Oh man, that'd be cool. Next time, that's vision right there.
The Temptations, baby. Yes, the Temptations. My girl, they had them out. So every year they do that. So let's pray we get off the lockdown so we could continue that.
Yeah,
that's usually held at the Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa parking lot, right?
Yeah,
man. So with that, we're going to end this interview. Pastor Tommy, thank you so much for coming on, and we just appreciate your ministry, bro.
Hey, Paul, thank you so much, bro, for even thinking of me, man. And it's cool just to, you know, we just got to keep fighting that good fight, keep running that race. Don't ever stop, man. Yeah.
Much love to everybody out there. Please subscribe, like, and share this video everywhere. There's somebody that needs to hear it, guys. God bless you. May the Lord keep you.